Imagine the very first taste of your life. You don't remember it consciously. You don't know that even then, the world was already sending you signals. But your body knew. The sweet liquid of your mother. The faint bitterness of plants. Every taste was both a warning and an invitation. The beginning of a conversation with what could nourish you and what could harm you. Taste is the first language the world speaks to you in. An invisible guide whispering, "This is good. This is dangerous." The sense of taste isn't just the work of the tongue. It's a complex system where taste buds send impulses to the brain, and the brain decides what to keep and what to reject. The 5 basic tastes, sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami, are no accident. Each carries an evolutionary story of survival and energy. Sweetness points to calories. Bitterness warns of toxins. Umami signals the presence of proteins the body needs to grow. Every bite is both a biological experience and a living history of life itself. But taste is more than biology. It is a journey through time and culture, through spices once worth more than gold, trade routes that reshaped empires, cuisines that built nations and identities. From the heat of Mexican chili to the subtle umami of Japan, from the sun-drenched herbs of the Mediterranean, every region tells its story through flavor. Each dish is a tale where chemistry, emotion, and memory all take part. Taste teaches patience, awareness, and pleasure. It reminds us that eating is not merely the body's need, but a ritual, a celebration, an aesthetic experience. Taste opens the door to understanding the invisible world around us, intricate, chemical, miraculous, entering our bodies one bite at a time. The story of taste begins on the tongue, but extends far beyond it. Every millimeter of its surface is covered in taste buds, tiny structures that act like antennas, receiving messages from the world of food. Within them, receptor cells respond to the 5 fundamental flavors: sweet, bitter, salty, sour, and umami. It's a biological alphabet that lets the body read the world. Sweetness means energy, bitterness warns of danger, salt points to vital minerals, sourness signals freshness, and umami reveals the presence of protein. Yet taste buds are only the beginning. The signals they generate travel to the brain, where they merge with other senses: smell, touch, temperature. That's why the aroma of freshly baked bread can send a shiver of pleasure down your spine. And the creamy texture of a sauce can make flavor almost tangible. What we call taste is the product of millions of years of evolution. Survival strategies encoded in receptors that teach the body what to trust and what to refuse. Taste begins on the tongue, but its true journey starts in the brain. Taste buds send electrical impulses to areas such as the operculum and the gustatory cortex. Yet these signals never act alone. They instantly intertwine with those of smell, touch, and texture. The brain doesn't perceive taste as pure chemistry. To it, taste is a network of sensations, associations, and emotions. When you close your eyes and let a piece of chocolate melt on your tongue, your brain reads it through aroma, smoothness, warmth, and memory. Every act of tasting engages the limbic system, the brain's emotional and memory center. Thanks to it, taste can summon memories in an instant. The scent of summer fruit, a grandmother's kitchen, the warmth of holidays long past. The brain weaves together signals from the tongue and the senses into what could be called a memory of taste. It's not pure science, it's chemistry, electricity, and emotion fused into the personal language of flavor. Neuroplasticity plays its part too. We learn to taste. The more flavors we encounter, the richer the web of connections between taste buds, smell, and memory becomes. That's why chefs and sommeliers can detect nuances invisible to most people. Their brains have learned to listen more deeply. Taste is also a decision-making tool. The brain interprets signals and commands. Eat this. Avoid that. It's the oldest mechanism of survival. Sweetness and umami invite, bitterness warns. But the human brain evolved to add meaning beyond instinct. We choose food based on culture, emotion, even ethics. Taste is both biological and cultural, instinctive and learned. At the level of neurons, Taste is an orchestra of electric impulses. Each receptor sends a signal the brain interprets in a heartbeat. Combined with smell, texture, temperature, and memory, these impulses create what we call flavor. That's why taste is unique to every person, shaped by genes, experiences, and emotions. In this light, taste stops being a simple sense. It becomes a cognitive system, a meeting point of biology, neurology, and psychology. Every bite is a symphony of impulses, memories, and feelings. Invisible, subtle, and profoundly powerful. The brain decides what is sweet or bitter, pleasant or not, and in doing so, it gives taste its true meaning. Taste and smell are two sides of the same coin. Without smell, taste becomes an instrument without strings. Taste buds detect sweetness, sourness, saltiness, bitterness, and umami, but that's only the skeleton of the experience. Aromas provide the soul. The delicate notes of fruit, spice, freshly baked bread, or aged cheese. Smell gives flavor its character, its depth, its story. When smell is lost through illness, injury, or genetics, taste flattens. You can still sense sweetness, salt, sourness, bitterness, umami. But the world loses its colors. Food becomes functional. It feeds, but rarely delights. The pleasure fades. Eating turns into routine. Research shows that the loss of smell, anosmia, doesn't just dull flavor. It changes behavior. People start adding more salt or sugar, chasing the missing intensity. Preferences shift. Foods once loved feel empty, and we seek sharper sensations, spicier or saltier, to awaken the tongue. It's proof of how deeply taste and smell collaborate to shape our experience. In the brain, signals from the nose and the tongue meet in the orbitofrontal cortex, the place where flavor becomes whole. There, the brain decides that coffee is bitter but aromatic, that an apple is sweet and crisp, that chili burns but pleases. Without smell, these perceptions break apart. Only raw chemistry remains, stripped of story. Smell also ties flavor to emotion and memory. A scent can carry us across decades in an instant, to childhood kitchens, to the sea, to someone we loved. When smell disappears, those emotional bridges collapse. Eating becomes mechanical, stripped of nostalgia and warmth. People describe it as watching a color film drain to black and white. The story remains, but the soul is gone. In the end, the loss of smell reveals something profound. Taste is never just about the tongue. It's a conversation between senses, a harmony between body, memory, and mind. Even the most complex meal, full of contrast and aroma, becomes flat without it. Because what we call flavor is not in the food. It's in us. In this way, smell reveals itself as essential to truly experiencing food. Taste without scent exists on a biological level. We can tell sweet from bitter, but it loses all its poetry, its emotion, its context. It's like a symphony stripped of most of its instruments. The melody remains, but the harmony, depth, and full expression are gone. Anyone who has ever lost their sense of smell knows that real flavor is a dialogue between body and brain. Now, that taste alone is only the beginning. It's also worth seeing. Taste as a strategy of cooperation with nature. Dolphins, birds, even insects learn to choose their food by taste. Humans, meanwhile, have developed culinary systems that go beyond survival to create pleasure and culture. Umami, that mysterious taste discovered only in the 20th century, shows how subtle our biological cues can be. Through it, humans learn to draw depth and fullness from fermented foods, meats, and broths, enriching world cuisines with layers of experience that satisfy not just the body, but also the mind. Taste never works alone. It's always part of an ensemble. The cooperation of receptors, the blending of tastes and aromas, the contrasts of sweet and sour, bitter and salty. All of it functions like an orchestra in which every instrument plays its part. Because of this, we can craft dishes that delight, surprise, and teach us. Taste rewards patience, awareness, and creativity. It is a bridge between nature and culture, between biology and art. Not everyone experiences taste in the same way. Though we are all born with taste buds that react to the 5 basic stimuli: sweet, bitter, salty, sour, and umami, their number, distribution, and sensitivity differ from person to person and even change over time. Some people have many more and can detect the most delicate nuances. Others have fewer and perceive food in broader strokes. That's why one person might savor the faint bitterness of dark chocolate, while another finds it unpleasant. Taste buds are not just contact points between the tongue and food. They connect with nerves that send information to the brain, where signals mix with those of smell, temperature, touch, and emotion. Taste, then, is not a chemical sensation alone. It's an interpretation made by the entire brain. Each of us learns to taste throughout life, and our preferences are shaped by genes, experiences, culture, and even health. Someone raised on salty, spicy food will perceive delicate flavors differently than someone who grew up on milder dishes. Some differences are genetic. There are people known as super tasters, individuals with exceptionally sensitive taste buds who feel bitterness and acidity far more intensely. For them, vegetables like broccoli or arugula can taste unbearably bitter, while others enjoy them without trouble. Those with fewer taste buds often need stronger stimuli to feel full flavor, which is why they may prefer heavily seasoned food. Psychology plays its part as well. A dish that looks appetizing or smells inviting can seem to taste better than the same meal served carelessly. Memories and emotions are inseparable from taste. That's why one person's grandmother's dessert will always be the sweetest in the world, while to another it's nothing. Remarkable. Taste changes with age, health, and lifestyle. Taste buds regenerate every few weeks, but with time their number and sensitivity decline. Illness, medications, smoking, or long exposure to strong spices can alter the way we perceive flavor. Even the time of day or the level of hydration can subtly shift what we consider sweet, bitter, or salty. Taste is, in truth, a unique personal universe, where biology meets culture, genes meet experience, and chemistry meets psychology. Two identical dishes can trigger entirely different reactions in two people sitting at the same table. Each of us lives within our own sensory cosmos. From simple sweet-bitter contrasts to complex symphonies of aroma and texture that shape our memories, our emotions, and our culinary identity. Taste is not an accident. It is a survival strategy written by millions of years of evolution. Every basic taste we perceive plays a role in protecting and sustaining life. Sweet signals energy, fruit, honey, ripe seeds. Umami whispers, here is protein, the building block of your body. Sour warns of spoilage, bitter of toxins. Salt reminds us of the minerals our muscles and nerves depend on. Every bite is both pleasure and lesson. A reminder that our bodies have learned to distinguish the nourishing from the dangerous. But nature never meant for us to react only to instinct. Taste became a tool of cooperation and invention. Humans discovered that by combining ingredients, they could create sensations that not only fed them but also inspired creativity and caution. Spices were never just additions. They were weapons, trade routes, and maps of discovery. Cinnamon from Asia, pepper from India, chili from the Americas. Each grain carried the power to shape taste, culture, and empire. Taste evolved with us. In our taste buds live the preferences of our ancestors, who had to choose their food in forests, on savannas, by rivers. Those who could tolerate bitter plants or discovered fermentation gained an advantage: protein, vitamins, minerals. Taste taught patience. Not everything good tastes good at first, and not every combination is safe. It is a sense that demands time, experimentation, and attention. At the same time, taste became a social tool. Eating together allowed people to share knowledge, to learn what was edible, and to discover new foods. Communities that cooperated in preparing meals formed stronger bonds, and culinary culture became part of social identity. Taste, therefore, was both a biological mechanism and a bridge between people, a way to teach, to connect, to survive. Taste never acts alone. It works with smell, temperature, texture, and appearance. Together, These senses allow the brain to compose full symphonies of sensation, subtle contrasts of sweet and sour, bitter and salty, layered with aroma and feel. That harmony lets us create cuisine that nourishes not just the body, but also the imagination. Ultimately, taste is a journey through time and space. Each meal is a meeting point of history, geography, chemistry, and self. It is a strategy of survival, a tool of culture, and a personal adventure all at once. Every bite is proof that evolution was not only about survival, but also about discovering beauty, pleasure, and creativity in what can be eaten. Taste is the guardian of memory. Sometimes a single bite, a hint of aroma, can carry you to another place and time. The smell of fresh bread recalls a grandmother's kitchen. Herbal tea, a summer afternoon in a meadow. Spicy curry, a seaside vacation. Taste is a vehicle of memory, uniting body and mind in an experience that is at once biological and emotional. It's not only nostalgia. Taste also shapes our emotions in the present. Food can comfort, calm, excite, or bring joy. That's why comfort food is so powerful. In moments of stress or sadness, we instinctively seek dishes tied to safety and happiness. Taste becomes a bridge between body and mind, a natural regulator of emotion. Taste memories are social too. Dishes and culinary rituals bind families and communities together. Cooking together, sharing food, teaching children traditional recipes, all this forms culture, memory, identity. No wonder national cuisines are so varied. Taste is both personal and collective, written into our genes, our experiences, and our history. Not everyone experiences flavor the same way. What delights one person may leave another indifferent or even repelled. Genetics, the number of taste buds, past experiences, even health, all shape our perception of food. Yet despite those differences, taste remains a universal language, one of pleasure, memory, and emotion, that every human being can read in their own way. Taste is also a journey through time. Through it, we discover the past and imagine the future. We explore new spices, experiment with combinations, learn to cook, create, and push beyond what we know. Every meal is a small act of art and science, biology and culture intertwined. Taste reminds us that humans live not by food alone, but by what they draw from it: pleasure, knowledge, emotion, and memory. Taste has never been just a personal experience. It has shaped human history. It drove exploration, war, and trade, and spurred the development of culinary technology. People long understood that food could be more than energy. It could be weapon, currency, or symbol of power. Spices that seem ordinary today were once more precious than gold. Pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg. Their scent and flavor led to voyages across oceans and the rise of trading empires. Taste was not only pleasure, but also strategy, of survival, of dominance, of discovery. As societies grew, taste became a tool of cooperation. Shared cooking and recipe exchange allowed people to learn from one another. What was safe? How to combine ingredients? How to draw out flavor? That's how culinary cultures were born. Local traditions, rituals, festivals where taste was at the center. Communities that could cook together didn't just survive. They thrived, forming stronger, more stable bonds. Creativity in the kitchen was its own kind of adaptation. Fermentation, smoking, steaming. These were not just ways to preserve food, but to transform it, to deepen its flavor and value. Humans learned to use chemistry, heat, time, and tools to make food not only fuel, but an aesthetic experience. Each meal was a small laboratory where biology and culture worked together to create something greater than physiology. Taste fueled trade and travel. People crossed hundreds, even thousands of kilometers to find spices, salt, rare fruits, and herbs. Every spice won was a triumph, not only of the palate but of the mind. Proof of planning, negotiation, and imagination. In this way, taste became one of the engines of globalization, connecting the world through flavor, aroma, and invention. And today, though we no longer fight wars for pepper, taste still shapes our societies. Restaurants, world cuisines, food festivals, they are modern echoes of ancient exploration and collaboration. Every meal reminds us that taste has always been a tool of survival, of knowledge, of pleasure, and of culture. It's the sense that feeds not only the body, but our curiosity, our need to discover the world, others, and ourselves. The taste of the future goes beyond taste buds and traditional cuisine. It enters the realms of technology, science, and imagination. 3D printed food allows for creations once impossible. Perfectly balanced textures, aromas, colors, combinations of ingredients that nature itself never produced. Each bite becomes an experiment where chemistry, physics, and design work together to create a fully human-controlled sensory experience. Artificial flavors and aromas open even more possibilities. Scientists can now recreate in the lab the taste of fruits that never existed on Earth, or design versions of familiar dishes that are healthier, longer lasting, and more intense. The virtual reality of taste, though it sounds like science fiction, already lets people simulate flavor without physical food using electric and chemical stimuli. Imagine a meal that exists only in your brain, yet feels utterly real. The full experience of taste, born from nothing but thought. The taste of the future is also becoming a tool of personalization. Every person has unique taste buds, genetic predispositions, and taste memories that can be analyzed and adapted. Thanks to technology, it will be possible to design meals tailored precisely to an individual's preferences and health needs, optimizing nutrition, sensation, and emotion. Each meal will become a personal experience, unrepeatable, like a one-of-a-kind piece of music. But the future of taste is also an ethical and ecological challenge. Laboratory food production may reduce the need for mass animal farming, lower emissions, and save water. Yet it also raises questions about authenticity and humanity's connection to nature. Will a flavor created in a lab ever move us the same way as a fresh fruit picked straight from a tree? Can a virtual dessert replace the joy of sharing a table with others? The taste of the future is not only a biological experiment, it is a philosophical one. It's a space where science, technology, ethics, and imagination meet to redefine what it means for something to be edible. Every bite becomes a journey into the unknown, not only through aromas and textures, but through the very possibilities of human creativity and our ability to discover the world through our senses. The world of taste does not end with humans. For animals, it is just as essential, though it often works in entirely different ways, in places we would never expect. A butterfly, for instance, has taste buds on its legs. When it lands on a leaf, it literally tastes the ground beneath its feet. This allows it to instantly recognize whether a leaf is suitable for laying eggs. The female monarch butterfly, before she chooses a place, tests the plant with her feet. If she detects the bitterness of toxins, she flies away. For her, taste is not pleasure, but survival. Fish, on the other hand, have taste buds not only in their mouths, but across their entire bodies. Some species, like catfish, have over 100,000. From their whiskers to their fins. For them, water is like a soup in which they can sense every ingredient. It allows them to find food even in complete darkness, where sight and hearing fail. Every flick of a fin, every current of water carries a taste message. Snakes, meanwhile, taste the air. Their forked tongues are not just for intimidation. They function as organs that analyze chemical particles in the air. When a snake flicks its tongue, it collects microscopic samples of its surroundings and transfers them to the Jacobson's organ in the roof of its mouth. There, the analysis takes place. The snake quite literally tastes the scent of its prey, discerning its direction, distance, and type. Some insects possess even more surprising abilities. Mosquitoes can sense the taste of blood through the skin. Their receptors respond to carbon dioxide concentration and chemical signals from the body. For them, taste is information about whether a target is near. A housefly, on the other hand, has taste buds on its feet and proboscis. That's why before it lands on food, it always performs those characteristic leg movements, testing whether what it sees is edible. Mammals can surprise us too. Cats, for instance, can't taste sweetness. Their receptors are genetically unresponsive to sugar. Evolution decided that predators don't need to recognize sweet flavors. Dogs, on the other hand, have fewer taste buds than humans, but they perceive meat and fat far more intensely. Their evolutionary energy radar. Cows and horses, however, have an enormous number of taste buds because they must analyze plants to avoid toxins. Their tongues are true chemical laboratories. But the most extraordinary taste belongs to the octopus. On its tentacles are thousands of taste receptors. Each suction cup can sample its surroundings. The octopus doesn't only see and touch the world, it tastes it at the same time. As it explores the seafloor, its body constantly analyzes what's edible, dangerous, or simply interesting. This fusion of touch and taste is so refined that scientists are studying it to develop new sensors for underwater robots. Taste in the animal world is not a sense of luxury. It's an information system. What humans experience as pleasure, most creatures experience as a survival language. They don't eat to enjoy flavor. They taste to know what to eat, what to avoid, and how to live. Taste is one of the oldest senses on Earth. Older than sight. Older than hearing. It existed before animals learned to see, before they left the oceans. In the earliest beginnings of life, when only simple organisms drifted in the water, taste was the first language of contact with the world. It was through taste that primitive life forms learned what could be absorbed and what was poison. Taste is not a privilege. It's a survival instinct encoded in biology for billions of years. Each species developed its own way of tasting the world, according to what it needed to survive. Predators learned to recognize proteins and fats, herbivores, to avoid toxins, and omnivores, to seek balance between both. Taste became a map leading to energy. That's why sweetness signals sugar, pure fuel. Saltiness signals minerals essential for bodily balance. Sour warns of spoilage, bitterness of poison, and umami tells us that protein, the source of life, is near. Evolution did not design taste for pleasure, but for selection. The creature that could distinguish good from bad had a greater chance of survival. That's why even today, infants instinctively smile at sweetness and grimace at bitterness. These are reactions inherited from hundreds of millions of years of evolution. Echoes of decisions made by creatures long before they had eyes. Not every species needed the same information. Cats, which feed solely on meat, lost the gene responsible for perceiving sweetness. For them, sugar had no meaning. Dolphins, living in salty water and hunting fast-moving fish, also lost most of their taste receptors. In the ocean, they were nearly useless. Cows, horses, and deer, on the other hand, developed extraordinary sensitivity to bitterness, helping them avoid toxic plants. Taste became a filter of reality, tuned to the specific world of each species. In humans, the sense of taste also went through a long evolution. In ancient times, it helped people choose ripe fruit and avoid rotten ones. Sweetness was rare, so our brains rewarded it with intense pleasure. Bitterness, often dangerous, triggered disgust. The modern world has reversed this order. Today, sugar is everywhere, and bitterness has returned to favor in coffee, chocolate, tonic, and beer. Our brains still react the same way, only the context has changed. Evolution taught us for millions of years that taste was a decision between life and death. Only culture turned it into pleasure and art. Taste, then, is more than just a reaction of the tongue. It is a story of survival, adaptation, and the memory of species. Every receptor, every response, every neural impulse is a record of the journey life has taken. From bacteria to humans. Taste is the language of evolution, through which nature whispers, "What you feel matters." Spicy taste, a word that sounds harmless, yet it can turn an ordinary meal into a near-transcendent experience. But the truth is, spicy taste doesn't really exist. It isn't on the tongue, nor in the taste buds. It's not a flavor, it's pain. And in that lies its paradox. When we reach for a chili pepper, our body sounds the alarm. A substance called capsaicin attaches to nerve receptors that normally warn us of burning heat. The brain receives a signal. Hot, escape. Even though the food isn't actually warm. We start to sweat. Our hearts race, tears form in our eyes, and then something strange happens. We laugh. We reach for more, craving an even stronger flame. Because as the body tries to protect us, it releases endorphins, natural painkillers that bring relief and euphoria. This is how the addiction to spicy food begins, not to flavor, but to emotion. It's a flirt with pain, a brief dance between suffering and pleasure. In Mexico, India, Thailand, or Korea, people have known this game for centuries. Their tongues, accustomed to fire, are less sensitive. Their receptors, more resilient. What's torture to a European is everyday comfort to them. Culture shapes the threshold of pain, and taste becomes part of identity. But heat isn't only about chili. Black pepper hides piperine, milder but just as cunning. Garlic burns with allicin. Horseradish and wasabi with isothiocyanates that attack not only the tongue, but rush up into the nose, bringing tears to the eyes. Menthol does the opposite, tricking cold receptors so we feel coolness where there is none. Nature has built a whole range of taste illusions, and humans have learned to use them like musical notes in a culinary symphony. Taste is not just the tongue. It's also the skin, the nose, the eyes, and above all, the brain, which interprets every signal. A spicy meal can warm the body and soul, boost circulation, clear the sinuses, send shivers down the spine. It's a primal, physiological, almost animal reaction, but also deeply human, because we've learned to find pleasure in what once made us flee. Some scientists say that our love of spicy food is a form of controlled risk, an echo of ancient survival instincts. Once pain meant danger. Now it means emotion, intensity, life. And perhaps that's why the fire of chili burns so beautifully. Because it reminds us we can still feel. The sense of taste is never fixed. It isn't a frozen gift we receive once and for all. It grows, changes, matures, and eventually fades. When we are born, we have as many as 10,000 taste buds, scattered not only on the tongue, but also on the palate, throat, even the inner cheeks. Infants respond to taste instinctively. Sweetness means safety and a mother's milk. Bitterness means possible danger. With age, taste begins to change. For a child, the tongue is a laboratory of curiosity. Everything is new, intense, sometimes overwhelming. In adulthood, taste stabilizes, and the brain learns to connect flavors with emotions, memories, and places. But time is not kind. After 40, taste buds slowly begin to disappear, regenerating more sluggishly. In older people, sensitivity, especially to sweet and salty, diminishes significantly. That's why the elderly often oversalt their food or add too much sugar to tea. Their world of flavor becomes quieter, less vibrant. Sometimes, the loss of smell adds to it, shrinking the sense of taste even more, because taste and scent are a duet that only truly works together. Taste can also betray our health. Diseases, medications, smoking, even stress can alter how we perceive food. Sometimes, something that always tasted familiar suddenly feels foreign. That's why loss or distortion of taste can be an early sign of illness, and its return, a signal of recovery. And one last curiosity. Taste can be trained. Sommeliers, chefs, and tasters learn to recognize nuances invisible to most. For them, taste is an alphabet. Every tone, note, and shade carries meaning. But truly, each of us has that potential. All it takes is to slow down, focus, and let taste tell its story. Taste buds are among the most extraordinary cells in our bodies. Delicate, yet astonishingly resilient. Each of us has around 5 to 10,000 of them, and every one of these microscopic structures functions like a separate chemical sensor, constantly receiving and sending information about the world of food to the brain. But unlike most nerve cells, taste buds renew themselves regularly. Every 10 to 14 days, old cells die and new ones take their place. It's a kind of natural taste reset. The body replaces its sensors so they never grow dull from constant contact with food. And what happens when the tongue gets burned? By hot coffee, soup, or a slice of pizza straight from the oven. For a moment, it feels as though taste has vanished. That's because the surface of the tongue is damaged, and the taste buds, which are located mainly in the upper layers of the papillae, are destroyed. But it's not a permanent loss. The body immediately begins to repair itself. Within a few days, new receptor cells appear, taking over the function of those that were lost. If the burn is mild, as it usually is, taste returns after a few days. In more severe cases, when the tissue is damaged more deeply, it may take longer, sometimes even several weeks. But the tongue is a tough organ. Its ability to heal and rebuild is remarkable. A curious fact, though most people say they've lost their sense of taste after a burn, it's often not the taste buds themselves that are affected, but the mucous membrane, which determines how food molecules reach the receptors. As long as the surface of the tongue is swollen or dry, taste will seem weaker. That's why even a simple cold, dehydration, or air that's too dry can dull our sense of taste. But the body is patient, as if it knows that taste is too important to lose for long. Because taste isn't just pleasure, it's a signal of life. Taste can be easily deceived, and we do it more often than we think. Our brain doesn't analyze flavor in isolation. Every bite is a signal that must be interpreted, and the brain always takes context into account. Color, smell, texture, sound, even expectation. That's why taste doesn't exist as a pure sense. It's a blend, an illusion created by the brain, which tries to understand the world faster than biology allows. The most obvious trick is color. Humans instinctively associate certain shades with specific flavors. Red and pink with sweetness, yellow with sourness, green with freshness or acidity, and black with bitterness. If you pour someone a colorless drink that tastes like strawberry but tint it blue, most people will see blueberry or mint. The brain receives the first signals through the eyes, and only then through the tongue. That's why colorful sodas taste stronger than they would if they were clear, even when their composition is identical. Taste can also be tricked by sound. High-pitched, bright tones make food seem sweeter. Deep, low sounds enhance bitterness. It's not magic. It's the brain linking tone with emotion and transferring that emotion onto food. Some renowned restaurants even create soundtracks for dishes that modulate taste in real time. Chocolate accompanied by high notes seems creamier. With deep sounds, it feels darker and heavier. And what about texture? The very sound of a crunch can heighten the feeling of freshness. If chips or an apple crunch louder, they seem better, juicier, even though their chemical composition hasn't changed at all. The brain seeks confirmation through hearing that the food is fresh and safe. That's why food manufacturers design the perfect sound of a crunch. It's not coincidence. It's the psychology of eating. Taste can also be fooled by expectation. If you tell someone that something is luxurious, expensive, or from the finest region, the brain activates its pleasure centers before a single bite is taken. And indeed, the food tastes better. In blind tests, the very same dish scores lower. It's proof that taste begins even before anything touches the tongue. One of the most fascinating phenomena is how closely the brain connects taste and smell. So closely that it can create the illusion of flavor from aroma alone. If you eat something sweet but odorless, it will taste like sugar water. But add the right scent, strawberry, vanilla, lemon, and the brain immediately interprets it as a specific flavor, even though the actual taste compound doesn't exist. That's why gums, drinks, and candies can taste fruity without containing a trace of real fruit. It's not the tongue that perceives these tastes. It's the nose that creates their illusion. Temperature can also deceive taste. The same sugar tastes less sweet in cold water and sweeter in warm. Hot coffee feels more bitter. When it cools, it seems milder. That's why ice cream can contain enormous amounts of sugar and still not seem overly sweet. Coldness blocks part of the receptors. Even the shape of a dish can alter how food tastes. Round plates enhance sweetness. Sharp-edged ones emphasize sourness or bitterness. A heavy cup makes a drink taste richer. A light one, thinner, more watery. It's not suggestion. It's a process deep in the brain. happening before the information reaches consciousness. All of this leads to one conclusion. Taste doesn't exist on its own. Every bite is a complex dialogue between the senses, and the brain is a master of illusion, constantly interpreting, guessing, and filling in the rest. One color, one sound, one thought, and flavor shifts like a picture changing in the light. Taste isn't just chemistry. It's a story the brain writes anew every single time. For decades, school textbooks showed a colorful diagram of the tongue, simple, elegant, and false. It claimed that the tip senses sweetness, the sides sourness, the edges saltiness, and the back bitterness. Easy to remember, pretty on paper, completely untrue. In reality, the entire tongue perceives every taste. Taste buds aren't divided into zones like continents. They're spread across the surface, forming a dense network of receptors that cooperate rather than compete. That doesn't mean the tongue is identical everywhere. Some regions are slightly more sensitive to certain stimuli, but the differences are minimal. The tip indeed reacts a little faster to sweetness, because evolutionarily it's the safest taste, a signal of energy, of sugars that were rarely poisonous. Bitterness, often linked to toxins, activates the back of the tongue more strongly, where the defensive reflex, the gag, can act faster. But these are in zones, only subtle differences in sensitivity, like microtones in music that together form harmony. This myth arose from a misinterpretation of early 20th century research. The German scientist David Hoenig measured taste sensitivity thresholds in various parts of the tongue, but the differences he found were microscopic. When his chart was later translated into an American textbook, those tiny variations became bold, colored boundaries. And thus, the legend of the tongue map was born, teaching generations of children something beautifully simple, yet entirely untrue. Today we know that taste is a collective process. A single bite activates hundreds of taste buds, each sending signals to the brain, where the information is interpreted. The tongue isn't a mosaic of flavors. It's an instrument, and every part of it plays its note in the same melody. When we eat, we don't taste a single tone. We taste a symphony. And perhaps that's why taste is never just physiology. It's an experience that can't be broken into parts.